The first time I realized my stepmother wanted to destroy me, I was standing in our dining room holding the shattered remains of my grandmother's crystal vase. Josephine's perfectly manicured fingers gripped my wrist, her voice carrying across the room where my entire family had gathered for Dad's birthday dinner. Oh, Thea, always so clumsy, always so destructive. Her words dripped with honey-coated venom. What would your mother think? I'm Thea, and at 28, I should have been beyond caring what this woman thought of me. But something about Josephine had always made me feel like that lost 12-year-old girl again, watching her sweep into our lives with her designer clothes and practiced smile. It was an accident. My youngest sister Marlo piped up from the corner, but Josephine silenced her with a look. Sweetheart, please help your sister clean this up, Dad said weakly, not meeting my eyes. He hadn't really looked at me properly in years, not since Josephine came into our lives. Emerson, my 16-year-old half-sister, rolled her eyes and muttered, "Way to ruin another family dinner, Thea." I bit back the urge to explain that Josephine had bumped into me deliberately. Instead, I knelt to gather the glittering pieces, my hands shaking with rage and hurt. "I'll get the dustpan," Marlo offered, squeezing my shoulder as she passed. Later that night, I escaped to Dad's study, my childhood sanctuary. The familiar smell of leather and old books usually calmed me, but tonight something felt different. As I ran my fingers along the spines of his first edition collections, a yellowed envelope slipped from between two volumes and fluttered to the floor. The paper was old, the corners worn. It was addressed to my father, dated 16 years ago, right around the time he'd met Josephine. "What are you doing in here?" Josephine's sharp voice made me jump. I shoved the letter into my pocket instinctively. "Just needed some quiet," I said, turning to face her. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Your father's study isn't your playground anymore, dear. You're not a child who needs coddling." "No," I agreed, meeting her gaze steadily. "I'm not a child anymore. Maybe that's what scares you." Her perfectly composed face flickered for just a moment. "Don't push me, Thea. You won't like what happens when people push me." As I walked past her, my heart pounding, the letter seemed to burn in my pocket. Something told me I'd just stumbled onto something bigger than our usual power plays. Something that might finally explain why my strong, confident father had become a shadow of himself since marrying this woman. I pulled out my phone and texted my best friend Annalise. "Need to talk. Found something. This changes everything." "Holy shit," Annalise whispered, smoothing out the letter on her kitchen counter. "Your dad was involved in a money laundering scheme?" I paced her apartment, running my hands through my hair. "Not exactly. From what I can piece together, he discovered it. His old business partner was the one behind it, but Dad..." I swallowed hard. "Dad covered it up. And Josephine knows about this? There's more." I pulled out my phone, showing her the emails I'd found after going down the rabbit hole in Dad's study. "She's been blackmailing him with it for years. That's why he married her." Annalise's eyes widened as she scrolled. These threatening messages. "She's ruthless, Thea." A knock at the door made us both jump. Marlo stood there, her face pale. "I followed you," she admitted. "I heard everything." "Marlo," I started, but she cut me off. "I always knew Mom was different when you weren't around. The things she says about you, the way she controls everything." Marlo stepped inside, closing the door. "Last week, I heard her on the phone, threatening Dad about some documents she keeps in her safe." My heart raced. "What safe?" "Behind the painting in their bedroom. I've seen her open it when she thinks no one's watching." Annalise leaned forward. "Thea, you need legal advice. I know someone. Cody Johnson. He specializes in cases like this." My phone buzzed with a text from Emerson. "Dad's acting weird. Mom's threatening to send me to boarding school if he doesn't get in line." "What's going on?" "She's escalating," I muttered, showing them the message. "You have to do something," Marlo pleaded. "Dad's getting worse. Yesterday I found him in his study just staring at nothing." Another text came through, this time from Josephine. Your father needs to sign these new business documents by tomorrow, or things might become very uncomfortable for everyone. Make sure you keep your nose out of family business, dear. She knows, I whispered. She knows I found something. Annalise grabbed her keys. We're going to see Cody. Now. As we headed for the door, Marlo grabbed my arm. Wait, there's something else. Mom's planning something big. I overheard her saying she's going to transfer everything into her name. She said Dad won't have a choice. My hands clenched into fists. Like hell he won't. Be careful, Annalise warned. Josephine seems like the type who'd burn everything down if she's cornered. Maybe, I agreed, thinking of Dad's hollow eyes and my sister's fear. But I'm done watching her destroy my family. It's time someone cornered her anyway. Cody's office smelled like coffee and old books. He adjusted his glasses as he reviewed the documents spread across his desk. This is serious, Thea. Your stepmother's blackmail scheme is elaborate. She's been siphoning money from your father's accounts for years. Can we stop her? I asked, gripping the armrest of my chair. We can do more than stop her. We can... A knock interrupted him. Sorry, my assistant texted. Your sister Emerson is here. Says it's urgent. Emerson burst in, mascara streaking her cheeks. Mom's losing it. She just threatened to send Marlo to some wilderness program for difficult teens because she caught her in their bedroom. My blood ran cold. The safe. What safe? Emerson asked, then shook her head. Never mind. Dad's barely eating, barely sleeping. This morning, Mom was screaming about some missing papers, and when he tried to calm her down, Emerson's voice cracked. She said she'd destroy everything he loves if he doesn't comply. Cody leaned forward. Emerson, would you be willing to make a statement about what you've witnessed? She looked at me uncertainly. Remember when we were kids? Before Josephine? How Dad used to laugh, how he'd take us sailing every weekend. Tears spilled down her cheeks. He doesn't even smile anymore. My phone buzzed. Marlo. Mom's going through Dad's study like crazy. She knows something's missing. Help. We need to move fast, Cody said, gathering papers. I can file for an emergency injunction, but we need proof of the blackmail and financial manipulation. The safe, Emerson said suddenly. That's where she keeps everything important. I've seen her opening it late at night. We can't break in, I started, but Cody raised his hand. Actually, if your father gives permission to access his own bedroom... My phone rang. Dad's number. My hands shook as I answered. Thea. His voice was barely a whisper. I found your note. About knowing everything. I should have been stronger. Should have protected you all. Dad. No, listen. The combination is your mother's birthday. The real documents. Everything Josephine's done. It's all there. I've been keeping copies, just in case. He took a shuddering breath. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. Mr. Johnson is here with me, I said. We can help, Dad. Let us help. There was a long pause. Do what you need to do. I trust you, Thea. I always have. As I hung up, Emerson grabbed my hand. Mom's taking Marlo to look at that wilderness program tomorrow. We have to stop her. Tonight? I said, meeting Cody's eyes. We moved tonight. The house was dark when we arrived, except for the light in Josephine's home office. Emerson's hands trembled as she entered the security code. She's on a call, Marlo whispered, meeting us in the hallway. Something about offshore accounts. We crept upstairs to the master bedroom, my heart pounding with each creak of the floorboards. The painting, a hideous modern piece Josephine had insisted on, swung aside silently. I punched in my mother's birthday with shaking fingers, 05-17-62. The safe clicked open. Hurry, Emerson hissed, watching the door. Folders, documents, USB drives. I grabbed everything, stuffing it into my bag. At the bottom, a familiar envelope caught my eye. Divorce papers, unsigned, dated just weeks after their wedding. Well, Josephine's voice froze us all. A family reunion. How touching. She stood in the doorway, her silk robe perfectly arranged, her face a mask of cold fury. It's over, Josephine, I said, straightening up. We know everything. Do you? She laughed, the sound brittle. You know nothing. Your father is weak. He always has been. I made him successful. I made this family what it is. You destroyed this family, Emerson shouted, surprising us all. You destroyed Dad. Ungrateful child, Josephine spat. Everything I've done was for yourself. Marlowe cut in. We've seen the transfers, the threats, everything. Josephine's composure cracked. She lunged for my bag, but I stepped back. Don't, I warned. Cody Johnson has copies of everything already. It's done. You think you've won? Her laugh turned hysterical. Your father will lose everything. His reputation, his company. No, Dad's voice came from behind her. You're the one who's lost everything. He looked different, stronger somehow, despite his exhaustion. The police are on their way, Josephine. The FBI, too. They're very interested in those offshore accounts. You wouldn't dare, she whispered. I'll tell them everything about the money laundering. I've already told them, Dad said quietly. All of it. Including how you used it to blackmail me. It's over. Sirens wailed in the distance. Josephine's face contorted. She grabbed a crystal paperweight from the dresser and hurled it. Not at Dad, but at me. Marlowe shoved me aside. The paperweight shattered against the wall. That's assault. Cody's voice came from the hallway, his phone recording everything. Add it to the list. As the police lights flooded the room through the windows, Josephine's perfect mask finally crumbled completely. You'll regret this, she snarled. All of you. No, I said, hugging my sisters close. The only regret here is that we didn't stop you sooner. The police station's fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows as we gave our statements. Josephine sat in the interrogation room, her designer outfit wrinkled, her perfect makeup smeared. She's refusing to talk without her lawyer, Officer Martinez told us. But with the evidence you've provided, she won't have much choice. Dad slumped in his chair, looking both exhausted and relieved. I should have done this years ago. Should have protected you girls. You're protecting us now, I said, squeezing his hand. Cody burst through the door, waving a stack of papers. The forensic accountants found everything. Josephine didn't just blackmail you. She's been running this scheme with multiple families. There are at least 3 other victims. Emerson gasped. Other families? She's done this before, Cody explained. Finds wealthy men with secrets, marries them, threatens them, then bleeds them dry. But she got sloppy this time, got too confident. A commotion erupted down the hall. Josephine's voice carried through the station. They're lying. Gerard is the criminal. He's turning you all against me. Mom, stop, Marlowe shouted, stepping into the hallway. Just stop. We saw the videos, the ones you kept in the safe. You bragging to your friend about how you trapped Dad, how you were going to take everything. Josephine's face went white. Marlowe, sweetie, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. Marlowe's voice shook. You never loved any of us. We were just props in your game. The DA wants to make a deal. Cody interrupted. In exchange for information about her other victims, they'll recommend a lighter sentence. No deals, Dad said firmly, standing up. She needs to face everything she's done. Josephine's lawyer appeared, looking grim. Mrs. Taylor, we need to talk. Now. As they disappeared into a conference room, Emerson broke down. What happens now? To us? To everything? We rebuild, I said, pulling her close. Together. The media's going to be all over this, Cody warned. A prominent businessman's wife running a multi-state blackmail operation? It'll be huge. Let them come, Dad said, his voice stronger than I'd heard in years. No more hiding. No more secrets. Annalise arrived with coffee and hugs. Your house is secure. I've got security posted. The press is already gathering. My phone buzzed with a text from Josephine's lawyer. My client wants to speak with Thea. Alone. Everyone looked at me. Don't, Emerson pleaded. She's just trying to manipulate you again. Actually, Cody said thoughtfully, this could work in our favor. One last conversation, recorded of course. I took a deep breath, thinking of all the years of pain, all the damage she'd caused. Okay, I said. One last talk. It's time she faces what she's done. Josephine sat across from me, her handcuffs glinting under the harsh interrogation room lights. All her usual poise had crumbled, leaving behind something raw and desperate. You've ruined everything, she hissed. I gave those girls everything. I made your father somebody. He was already somebody, I said quietly, before you broke him down. You don't understand what it's like. She leaned forward. Coming from nothing, fighting for every scrap. Save it. I cut her off. I've seen the records. You came from a wealthy family. You chose to destroy people. Her mask slipped for a moment, revealing genuine surprise. You did your homework? Unlike your other victims, I fought back. I can still hurt him, she threatened. One phone call to the press about your father's original involvement in the money laundering? The door opened. Dad walked in, followed by Cody and a federal agent. Go ahead, Dad said. Tell them, I already have. The difference is I was young and scared. You've spent years deliberately destroying lives. Josephine's face contorted. Gerard, please, think about the girls. Don't you dare, I stood up. Don't you dare use my sisters as bargaining chips. They're my daughters, who you were going to send away because they got too close to your secrets. I pulled out my phone, playing the recording of her conversation about the wilderness program. You never loved them. They were just tools. The federal agent stepped forward. Mrs. Taylor, we've found your other victims. They're all willing to testify. No, she whispered. No. Yes, Dad said firmly. It's over, Josephine. The only question is whether you'll face this with dignity or make it worse for yourself. She lunged across the table at me, but the handcuffs stopped her short. You think you've won? You've destroyed your sisters' lives. Their mother going to prison? How do you think that'll feel? Better than living with your poison. Marlowe's voice came from the doorway. She and Emerson stood there, tears streaming down their faces. We're done, Emerson said. We choose Dad. We choose Thea. Josephine collapsed back into her chair, finally silent. The DA's waiting, the federal agent said. Last chance for that deal. As they led Josephine away, she turned back one last time. I could have given you everything. No, I said, standing with my family. You could only take. And now you've lost it all. Outside the interrogation room, Dad hugged us all tightly. I'm so sorry, he whispered. So sorry I let her hurt you for so long. We're free now, Marlowe said. That's what matters. Emerson wiped her eyes. What do we do next? We heal, I said, holding them close. Together. The courtroom fell silent as Josephine was led in for sentencing. 3 months had passed since that night at the house, and the trial had revealed even more horrifying details of her schemes. Your Honor, the prosecutor stood. We have statements from all 5 families Mrs. Taylor destroyed through her blackmail operations. The psychological and financial damage? Objection, Josephine's lawyer called out. My client's actions were motivated by... Overruled, the judge said firmly. Continue. I squeezed Emerson's hand as she trembled beside me. Marlowe sat stone-faced on my other side, while Dad watched his soon-to-be ex-wife with quiet resolve. Would anyone like to speak before sentencing? The judge asked. I stood up, ignoring Josephine's glare. Your Honor, I'm not here to ask for revenge. I'm here because actions have consequences. My voice grew stronger. My stepmother didn't just steal money. She stole years of our lives. She stole my father's confidence, my sister's security, our family's trust in each other. Josephine's face twisted. You ungrateful... Mrs. Taylor, silence, the judge warned. But sitting here today, I continued. I realized she gave us something too. She taught us that real family fights for each other, that truth eventually comes to light, that karma is real. The judge nodded thoughtfully. Mrs. Taylor, please rise. Josephine stood, her designer jumpsuit a far cry from her usual elegant attire. The evidence against you is overwhelming. Multiple counts of blackmail, financial fraud, emotional abuse, attempted assault. The judge peered over her glasses. I sentence you to 15 years in federal prison with no possibility of parole for 10 years. No, Josephine screamed. You can't do this. Gerard, tell them. Dad stood up. Goodbye, Josephine. The divorce papers are waiting for your signature. As they led her away, she turned to my sisters. Girls, please, I'm your mother. No, Marlo said clearly. You're just someone who gave birth to us. Thea's shown us more love in 3 months than you did in our whole lives. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us. Mr. Taylor, how does it feel to be free of your wife's manipulation? Girls, what's it like knowing your mother is going to prison? Annalise and Cody formed a barrier, guiding us to the car. It's really over, Emerson whispered as we drove away. Not over, I corrected her. Just beginning. We have a lot of healing to do. Dad reached back and squeezed my hand. Thank you, sweetheart, for being stronger than I was. We're all strong now, I said, watching the courthouse disappear in the rearview mirror. And we're going to be okay. For the first time in years, I actually believed it. Dad, you're burning the pancakes again. Marlo laughed, grabbing the spatula from his hands. The kitchen was filled with morning sunlight and the smell of coffee. I'm trying, Dad protested, but he was grinning, that real, unguarded smile we'd missed for so long. Here, let me, I said, taking over while Emerson set the table. Our Sunday brunches had become a tradition since the trial, a way to rebuild what Josephine had broken. Mail's here, Annalise called, letting herself in. She'd practically moved into the guest house, helping us navigate our new normal. Including this. She handed Dad an official-looking envelope. His hands shook slightly as he opened it. The divorce is final, he said quietly. It's done. Emerson hugged him tight. Are you okay? Better than okay, he said. Free. Speaking of free, Marlo piped up. I got into the art program, the one Josephine always said was a waste of time. We erupted in cheers. Cody, arriving with case files, joined the celebration. Perfect timing, he said. The last of the restitution payments came through. All of Josephine's victims have been compensated. Dad nodded. And the company? Stocks are up, I reported. Turns out honesty and transparency are good for business. Who knew? The doorbell rang. Emerson returned with the delivery, boxes of Dad's things from his old office. Look what I found, she said, pulling out a dusty photo album. We gathered around the kitchen island, flipping through memories. Mom's smile beamed up at us from yellowed photos. Dad's arm around her. Me as a toddler between them. I forgot how happy we were, Dad said softly. Before everything. We're happy now, Marlo insisted. Different, but good. Better, Emerson added. No more walking on eggshells, no more secrets. My phone buzzed. A news alert about Josephine. She was attempting another appeal. Let her try, Dad said, seeing my expression. She can't hurt us anymore. You know what? I closed my phone. She's not worth another second of our time. This is our story now. To new beginnings, Annalise raised her coffee cup. To family, Marlo added. To truth, from Emerson. To healing, Dad said. I looked around at my family. Broken but rebuilt, scarred but stronger. To us, I said. All of us. The morning sun streamed through the windows, warming the kitchen filled with laughter and the smell of slightly burnt pancakes. This was what victory felt like. Not the courtroom drama or Josephine's downfall, but this quiet moment of joy, of family pieced back together, of peace finally found. This was our happily ever after, earned the hard way and all the sweeter for it.